what we can all agree on to start with is on the methodology as well as metrics that should be used across the board. Because for a deliveries space, we're a marketplace across consumers, dashers and couriers, and merchants. And we all agree that for consumers, we want to have the best quality, reliability, satisfaction of orders that they're getting, not just focusing on short term, but rather on. But then we allow local, brands to actually go and iterate on those common metrics. But then only now, after a few years, we're actually consolidating and building a unified platform, but always starting kind of the foundations first.
Welcome to Unite Voices, hosted by Katie Green. Real stories from the people behind today's most innovative experimentation programs. No fluff, just wins, failures, and the lessons in between.
Welcome to Unite Voices, featuring Ilya, Makram, and me, Katie Green, your host. I'm the principal advocate at Chameleon, which means I am responsible for our online community and creating a space for experimenters to learn from each other. I am joined by Makram and Ilya, and I'll let you both introduce yourself. But Makram, why don't you go first?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for hosting me. Yes, my name is Makram. I'm head of marketplace right now at IDMe. And before that, I was managing experimentation at Intuit Experimentation platform. And you're going to see a lot of common things between me and Ilya on that. And before that, I was at LinkedIn managing T-Rex, LinkedIn's experimentation platform. Very passionate about experimentation, personalization. So excited about this session today.
And Ilya, tell us who you are.
Yeah, definitely. I'm Ilya. Thank you, Katie, for inviting me to on this podcast, and really excited to share the panel with Makram. I lead DoorDash's experimentation platform currently, but I've been on both sides of experimentation, both using experimentation and building experimentation systems. So I built actually exactly a first version of Intuit's experimentation platform across TurboTax, QuickBooks, Mint.com, and then later on led an effort to open source it. So one of the first experimentation platforms available out there on the market. And Makram worked on the later versions of that platform. And then later on, I led Robinhood's and currently DoorDash's experimentation platform. But I also been on the other sides, right? So I've used experimentation on companies such as PayPal, Uber, and Amazon. And what I've learned is, no matter which side of experimentation you're on, we all benefit. We all should be using experimentation because it's just it's good for your business, for the growth of your business.
100%. And you both know each other. That's why this is our first 3-person Unite Voices episode. So for anybody watching and they're like, oh, I would really like to do that, but I want to bring somebody, we can have as many people as we want on the show. That's the beauty of it. So the experimentation community is pretty small, but y'all have worked together in the past, right? I want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly.
We haven't worked. I don't think we were overlapping, but it's such, like you mentioned, like it's a small community. Like, look at it. We are connected on LinkedIn. We chatted a lot of times. He was before me at Intuit managing the early version of experimentation. The people I worked with, like Credit Karma, Darwin, even at Intuit, there were 2 versions. There's Darwin for experimentation. So that person is now under Ilya's team, and it's a small world. And this is the beauty about the experimentation community.
Yeah, exactly. To Makram's point, we didn't directly work together, but it seems like we did because throughout the years, we kind of used each other's work or work with folks who were in the community. But what I found is experimentation. It's like the smallest big tech function. It's the community is tiny, and there are only so many kind of experts in experimentation out there, but our work is used, throughout companies, right? It's an essential part of big tech companies as well as small as startups, mid-sized companies, but we all share our learnings about experimentation, and I would say we agree on maybe 80% of things. P-values, variance reduction techniques, experimentation methodologies, and then we argue on the 10 to 20% of the kind of the corner cases. But our goal is, no matter where we go, is to build kind of the best platform as well as the culture of experimentation. No matter where we go.
Yes, I think that's what I want the audience to take away is I didn't even realize that y'all never overlapped, but it is all in the spirit of experimentation to work together to make things better. So this question, I think, is for both of you because you've both led such huge high stakes programs. The thing that a lot of people run into is inheriting different tech stacks. And I mean, Ilya, I know acquisitions happen all the time. Makram, you have built programs from the ground up. I would love to hear a little bit more about the challenge or mistakes that you often see, anything related to what it looks like when you have a really difficult tech stack and what your first step is in what I like to call untangling the spaghetti of multi-platform experimentation practices, because I know so many people listening probably have a tool for ideation, a tool for build, a tool for analyze, whatever it is. They're hosting everything in Airtable and then putting it all in Google Sheets, right? Just tell us a little bit more about the more technical side of what it looks like to untangle the spaghetti of either inheriting a really complicated tech stack or maybe you're starting fresh. Let me know.
At DoorDash, so we have a pretty mature platform that we're building for over 6 to 7 years now. But then DoorDash has been acquiring companies around the world, for our global growth, because we've been growing in both our marketplaces and domains, so going beyond restaurants into grocery and electronics and retail and clothing deliveries. But then for our global growth, we've acquired a company called Volt, based in Finland, and Deliveroo, based in UK, and they also have their own experimentation platforms. So what I found is that it's important not to just rip and replace, because that destroys the kind of the local trust of those companies that are really doing a great job in their own marketplaces. For example, Volt and Deliveroo are really great at localization, for local languages and custom features that are really specific to those countries and regions. But what we can all agree on to start with is on the methodology, as well as metrics that should be used kind of across the board. For example, because we for a deliveries space, we're a marketplace across consumers, dashers and couriers, and merchants. So, and we all agree that for consumers, we want to have the best quality, reliability, satisfaction of orders that they're getting. On the courier side, we all agree that we need to have the best earnings for couriers, as well as metrics such as their utilization, make sure they're not sitting idle, and finally fairness of deliveries, right? So everybody gets their share of deliveries. Finally, on the merchant side, restaurant or store owners, we are focusing on their order volume, their unit economics of the specific items that are being delivered, and finally, kind of their longer term longevity of their businesses, not just focusing on short term, but rather longer. But then we allow local brands to actually go and iterate on those common metrics. But then only now, after a few years, we're actually consolidating and building a unified platform, but always starting kind of the fundamental foundations first.
I love that. I want to make that, part of the subtitle of what this episode ultimately is about, because I do see oftentimes in my personal career, you come into a new program and it's really easy to blame it on the tools. It's very easy to go, that's the problem. But the alignment of the methodology is so important. So Makram, in your experience, do you tackle the same problem first when you're inheriting complex tech stacks?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just like I mentioned before, Darwin. So Intuit acquired Credit Karma. Credit Karma had Darwin as the primarily experimentation platform. And obviously, want to make sure that we are not disrupting Credit Karma business. If this is working, the team is working with that experimentation platform, all is good and dandy. So we wanted to make sure that that is perfect. Now we started to integrate, do more cross work between Credit Karma and TurboTax. You're seeing a lot of connectivity over there, and there are experiments that are now running across, either starting in Credit Karma and effectively driving new acquisition to TurboTax or vice versa. So now these require now the tools to handshake between one another. And this is where the discussion started to happen between the Darwin platform team and the Intuit experimentation platform team. How are we going to make that happen so that people, we do not want to launch two experiments and people are starting to flip flop between control and treatment between these two variants. So this is where we started that conversation. So you can see and each one has its own tech stack. So that's where, the tricky situations start to happen. And obviously, there are other reasons that from a company combining technologies and tech stacks that are also big effect and factor.
You both have such specific experience in this part of the field. I'm really interested in something that I think a lot of people struggle with, which is, how do you share this information and build trust, right? Because you're saying we're aligning on methodology. Like, how do you build trust with such a large team when you have people coming from such different points of view? Usually, in my experience, people feel very passionately about experimentation, which is just incredible, right? What do you do when somebody says, "Oh, I don't agree that's the right metric. Oh, I do actually think it's the tool." I'm curious how you build trust and culture of experimentation with your teams.
Yeah, so the way I like to approach it is through, well, first of all, kind of learnings, right? So it's not really about the tools, but about kind of people and processes that are using this tool. So it's really important to first enable experimentation and show, no matter if you have somebody new joining, to show, okay, these are the experiments that have run in the past. So we have the culture that all experiment readouts or experiment summaries, either win or loss, are sent out across the company, and anybody who wants to understand what happened, they can read it and learn from it. The second ladder is using AI to bring out what's called institutional knowledge, right? So we're using AI to now mine all the past experiments readouts, and you can actually type in a query such as, show me all the dash pass experiments that moved our global order volume by more than 0.22%, and you will see all those experiments, and you can really understand and mine further to understand the details there. And last but not least, having kind of what's called leadership and executive buy-in on running experiments, and also understanding, kind of replying to experiments. For example, our CEO at DoorDash replies to all experiments that are being run and encourages to look at alternative ways of approaching this problem. So this kind of builds trust. So no matter kind of what culture of experimentation you came from, you should be able to kind of understand the past, understand what's happening right now, but of course, provide your own input and feedback on what happened. But our goal at the end of the day, no matter what experience you're coming from, is to build the best in class experimentation that really works for DoorDash and our global business.
I'm going to also give you a few examples I entered really the world of experimentation at LinkedIn when, like, I suddenly, I was a product manager, developer productivity, and then I got the opportunity to manage T-Rex, LinkedIn's experimentation platform, and I worked under Yagzu. She worked with Ronika Havi on the book. So that's where, the once I became a PM for T-Rex, LinkedIn's experimentation platform, the world of I started getting bombarded, and trust me, the word bombarded, left and right with feature requests from the different teams, and started to see like the importance of experimentation to the various teams. So I started realizing that you have AI engineers, data scientists, back-end engineers. Why does back-end engineers have a need for experimenting? Well, because of feature flags and all of the cleanup and all of those. And the same thing, so I had to really develop a prioritization framework because everybody wants their feature yesterday. And we are a small team. How can we like support all of these crazy use cases that are coming our way? I actually did a product school talk specifically about prioritization because like it was crazy abnormal the demand that is happening on experimentation teams. Then come I thought, okay, I moved to into it. Hopefully, less less demand. Turns out it's even worse. I'm dealing with B2B use cases for QuickBooks, and then B2C use cases for TurboTax. And not only that, you have web authors, the CMS editors who want to, and then you have designers, then you have developers, and front-end developers and back-end developers. So all of these have different needs from the experimentation platform. And as you mentioned, it's easy to blame the tool. And I was managing experimentation platform, personalization platform, and the CMS platform. So it's easy also to start pointing, oh, these tools don't talk to each other. Because remember, experimentation is a piece of the puzzle. For example, if I'm running a pre-authenticated marketing website experiment, well, that touches the CMS platform and then touches the experimentation behind it. So and then there's always that who's who owns that? Is it the CMS or is it the experimentation? So eventually, to tackle all of these, I even arranged go-to-market tech summit, an annual summit event where we invited all the key stakeholders from Australia, from London, and became that get together on a week where everyone will come to Mountain View, and they will be talking about their issues. And we even like planned it ahead of time, so they 1 week before come prepared. All the positive things you have to do to say about us, so that we're not like, oh, I hate this feat, I hate this feat, something is working. Tell us what's working, and then come back with the things. And you pick three because you have 20. Pick three and let's see how we can tackle them. So that really relieved things. So sometimes, these human interactions are very important.
I think that's an interesting juxtaposition in your answers, right? It's Makram saying bringing people physically to the table. And Ilya, something you brought up is leveraging AI to democratize insights. And that's something I talk about a lot. But I think both pieces of the puzzle create trust. And I'm curious, I realize this is a little bit tangential to our conversation, but I want to make sure I'm asking this. Makram and I talk about AI all the time, right? Makram is a strategic advisor to Chameleon, for everybody who didn't know. Makram and I are working on a PBX 2.0 series this morning, and we've been working on it for weeks now. So I know how Makram feels about where AI goes into the workflow, but I may have you repeat yourself on this podcast, Makram, because I think what you have to say is really important. So, Ilya, I'm curious, where are you leveraging AI? Where is it providing value? And where do humans fall in the loop still?
Yeah. I would say we're starting right now on the AI journey, but yeah, we've launched what we call as a MCP server for experimentation, and it's been going viral. People have been building their own skills for the various stages of experimentation lifecycle. So we're trying to kind of vet and contain it to make sure that people are not cutting corners and they're still using the established standards of experimentation. But yeah, we have a skill, for example, to create an experiment or a feature flag. We also just recently built out a experiment summary and readout skill, which kind of summarizes all the experiment analysis results. So it's really to understand what happened to experiment. But also we've been building kind of a background AI agent that looks and scans through your repositories and looks for stale feature flags or experiments that you should actually remove because it's called dead code. But what I'm realizing is we need to build a lot more skills throughout the experimentation lifecycle. So, for example, at the design stage, where you no longer need to wait for the experimenter to create a Google document with their definition. They can start and actually design their experiment right there with that AI agent. With our hypothesis and what metrics should be used and things like that, and also helping with those background agents to debug those experiments that have gone wrong, for example, with sample ratio mismatch issues or anything else that needs specific maybe restart of experiments. So yeah, we've been introducing AI throughout experimentation life cycle, but at the same time, we still want to have some UI that's available where they can look at the experiment analysis results. But more and more people are just using their agent command line to really interact with their experiment.
Before Makram, I let you go into the spiel that I know you're so good at. Isn't this funny? It sounds like Ilya was in our call this morning in terms of looking at stale feature flags. You and I both went, that stale feature flag, because that's something we were talking about this morning because our Chameleon's PBX 2.0 is launching. And by the time this show is out, actually, it will have been launched. So, spoiler to everybody, this was pre-recorded if you didn't realize. And but it's PBX 2.0. A huge part of it is making sure you're taking advantage of your test winnings in a reasonable time so you don't have stale feature flags, so you don't have stale learnings, whatever it be. I think it's hilarious. We're going to send you what Makram and I recorded this morning, and you will hear a lot of the terminology you just used because the whole thing was about AI. But Makram, I want you to tell us a little bit more about where you think AI provides the most value in the experimentation workflow today.
I see three phases of AI hitting us right now. Phase one, just like Ilya described, it is like streamlining the end-to-end workflow from ideate to shipping. That should be all, less dependencies. Right now, like if we talk about 6 months ago, we had two bottlenecks, or 1 year ago. One bottleneck is developers because every experiment needs developers to build, set up of that experiment. There's a lot of setup time that is required, and then there is also launch time after we have a winning experiment to get it out of the door. That's why we have all of these forever running experiments, because nobody has the bandwidth to turn it off and make it right, and all of these feature flags and all of those. So there is a bottleneck of engineering. There's another bottleneck on analysts, or to really do the readouts. And the analysts not only at the readout side, but also at the experiment design side, because in many cases, if an engineer doesn't set it up properly, then garbage in, garbage out, that experiment completely is not proper. So how can we remove these bottlenecks and have with AI much more and democratize the experimentation, so that not only experts in experimentation are only running experiments. Ideally, we want the tool to be an intelligent tool that anybody, a designer, a marketer, a PM who's not technical, is able to go and run with it. A designer coming from a Figma design is able to just push their Figma design into a prompt and get it up and running, because the whole notion of experimentation, let's test it out. I get into so many meetings. Oh, this is going to take a lot of like, I'm not asking you to go to production yet. I need to just test it out to see if it's working, and then we'll talk about that piece. And this is where the beauty about, how can we remove the setup time, quickly launch it, and then get the analysis. And then if it's winning, how can we quickly no dead time because to get it out or to ship it out. So that's phase one, in my opinion. Phase two, we're going to hit the traffic bottleneck now. Our websites, unless of course, DoorDash, you have on the homepage of DoorDash, you have the luxury with traffic. But we need to be able to do testing everywhere, not only the homepage of DoorDash. The teams who are owning the different components of they won't have a lot of that traffic. So how can we enable them to do other flavors of A/B testing? Maybe not online controlled A/B testing, not the causal stuff. So one thing that I was doing at Intuit is bringing the toolkit of experimentation so that they can do early testing. Early testing is better than not testing. At least they have a better data-driven decision on that. And then the third phase is synthetic audiences. There's a lot of debate right now about whether synthetic audiences are scientifically proven. But like I mentioned, if you are caught on time and you only have a small period, I mean, just let's take an example: TurboTax. TurboTax all year long. Now we finished taxes now. Do you know how much traffic is going to hit turbotax.com? It's going to be not too much. When is the turbotax.com is going to hit it? I imagine from January till April, right? So, but that's showtime. And we do not want to be doing a lot of bad tests during that period. So how can we leverage synthetic audience during this slow season and do with synthetic audiences something good so that we have good ideas, so when it is showtime in January, we are running those tests as well. So you see how that is error number 3, in my opinion.
Love this. Showtime. I can imagine that really is showtime. We could spend an entire other 30 minutes talking about AI and the future of experimentation. I will leave us with a quote I saw on LinkedIn today from Johnny Longden that said, A/B testing will not survive AI, but experimentation will. Know the difference? And I was like, oh, I love that. Like, probably true. So interesting. We could talk about this all day. I just know there's going to be people listening looking for your leadership on everything. But at least for now, they've heard about how to navigate really complex tech stacks. They've heard about how to build trust, where some of the leaders in the space are seeing AI go, or where you're using it now. I realize we're coming up on time. So I always end every episode with the same question. I want to ask you this. If somebody is leaving this episode right now and they are so overwhelmed with a team that maybe, let's say, they're just not understanding where they can create simplification, because I think that's what you do best as leaders, right? Both of you have shown that here is you're able to take a very complex issue and make it as simple as possible to create more impact. And whether it's simple just to the receiver, let that be it. But if you could just give any advice to anybody who wants to create simplicity in their program, whether it be tech stack, whether it be trust, metrics, whatever it is, what would you recommend they do tomorrow?
I can start. I would say, kind of what I learned throughout my career is earlier on, I focused on scalability. So I was talking, how can we run more and more experiments? And quantity is the goal, because the more experiments you run, probably the better things will be. But what I learned is it's not really about the quantity, but more about quality, right? You can be running a lot of different experiments, but if nobody is really looking at the results and it's not really changing your initial intention of what you're going to do, and you can just look at experiment results and launch your feature anyways, even if it's great in your guardrail metrics and things like that, so what? So instead of pursuing this magic number of 10,000 experiments, 20,000 experiments, or 100,000 experiments, focus more on decision quality. So how many original calls that you are going to make it actually made, right? So looking at experimentation as a decision engine. This is why, for example, my group at DoorDash, experimentation group, we actually call ourselves decision systems. So we are in the business of not just running experiments or not enabling feature flags, but in driving decision making. So yeah, focus on decision making, not on not just pure reporting of experiments just for the reporting sake.
I love it. I love it. You talk very similar language. So the more I listen to you, Ilya, the more like we're very a lot of things in common for us. I love it. These vanity metrics that we typically chase. I've been in many of those meetings. Like, okay, what are we trying to achieve here? What are we doing here? I love it. From my side, embrace AI. We live in a different world now. And if you think about the Venn diagram where, PM is only doing PM work, designer is only design work, that one is coming together. And at IDME, especially right now, uh, engineers are writing product PRDs. They're not waiting for a PM. If that's space that they can do it, let them do it. We are democratizing. Everybody can write content. Like everybody is now able to launch an experiment. It is those kind of with the right checks and balances. I can check in code. We have the rigor on the PR request. Like it's not like only an engineer can check in code because of the pull request and all that reviews. Man, everybody's using these AI tools now, and we can check in code, the auto PR with the right rules, and we have agentic architect and agentic PM that we're putting them together. So we are streamlining those. So those old habits those are the difficult things. If you can get rid of those habits and embrace the new world, that's my advice.
Overall, wonderful advice from both of you. We have be a decision system and embrace AI. I think that you can use AI to streamline your decision systems. Also, for anybody watching on YouTube, you're getting a really good view of and my cat muted me. Yeah, my cat is truly laying directly on my keyboard. It's fine. I'll recap what I said, which is just great feedback for everybody. I think they have a lot to learn from both of you. I wish we could have covered all the topics that we wanted to cover in 30 minutes, but it's just impossible. There's so much that you both could say. And I would encourage anybody following along to maybe find you on LinkedIn. If you have a question, ask them. But really good leaders to learn from, and leveraging AI and being a decision system, really important pieces of the puzzle. I would say be cautious of how you're leveraging AI to make decisions, right? That's my piece. If I'm going to add my flavor to it, is AI is an amplifier, not a strategy, and you are the strategy that employs AI. So I think like bringing those two together, I'll bridge it there. Really perfect way to pick up tomorrow and start. But thank you both for your time today. I really appreciate you. And yeah, I hope if anybody's watching on YouTube, they're getting a really good view of my cat. But in the meantime, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Unite Voices.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as they say it, what's called human is always at the helm, right? AI is system, but the person, human should be making the final calls.
Oh, well, there's the title of the episode. Decision Systems, Humans at the Helm. Love it. It's so great. Thank you both.